Hey everyone, we're here from Prospects to talk about the graduate labour market and what to expect over the next few months. Figures show the UK's economy started to bounce back from the recession, with a record growth of 15.5% in July to September. This came after a 6-month drop following the first lockdown announcement. This is a highly compressed recession, and once restrictions are lifted, we are seeing improvement. This could dip with the second lockdown, but while things may seem difficult right now, we could see a situation at the end of the pandemic where labour demand might outstrip supply significantly in some sectors. At the moment, the level of vacancies is running around 68% of their 2019 average, but this does vary by sector. Most of the rapidly recovering sectors are highly graduate, and this includes health, social care, education, and IT. So despite the recession, things are looking worse for non-graduates. A lot of the jobs that have been affected are lower skilled and non-professional level roles. Employers are coming up with diverse and creative solutions to deliver work experience for next year. Some are waiting to see what the economic prospects could look like, but we may see a surge of opportunities in the new year and spring. It's likely that virtual recruitment methods will continue, with online assessments and video interviews used to shortlist candidates. Employers are starting to feel optimistic that there will be a more diverse range of internships next year and new forms of internships, but it's a little too early to say right now. The thing is, employers were not prepared for a pandemic at the start of 2020, so many work placements and internships were cancelled because they just didn't have the time to adapt. Next year, more should be offered now that they've had time to prepare. I'm sure employers will be understanding given the current situation. So if you are struggling to find work experience, you can boost your CV with online courses to pick up skills and then explain to an employer how you could use them in the role you've applied for. Also, doing research to stay up to date with the latest news in your sector and watching webinars to gain industry insights and then adding them to your CV could demonstrate your interest for working in that industry. So don't stress because employers know it has been a tough year and they don't expect you to spend all day learning new skills and working on projects. Some just might be interested to know what you've been up to, that's all. And it's important to look after yourself too during this time. If you have relevant experience from before the pandemic, put that on your CV because it's not just about what you've done this year. So industry's doing well right now. Healthcare, it accounted for 1 in 8 vacancies in September. Social care is holding up well too, and education. There's been signs of pick up in marketing, IT, audit, employment law, and medical. And the McKinsey's modelling shows that STEM-related occupations and business and legal professional roles could grow by more than 20% in the coming decade. So the pandemic will change the way people work moving forward. The IPD expects home working to double once the crisis is over. We'll probably see a blend of home working and office use in the future for roles that suit that type of work. Many employees have proved to be as productive in the office at home as in the office, so widespread move to home working is likely for many graduates. Lots of graduate employers say home working has had a positive impact on productivity, and not commuting to work has removed the least productive parts of people's day. It can feel quite strange working from home if you've never done it before, but employers are becoming aware that they need to support employees with their well-being during this time. And this will differ for each company, but it's worth looking into how an organisation intends to support its workers. We've seen an increase in people studying for a postgraduate qualification this year. Data from the Higher Education Statistics Agency shows that there's usually a rise in PG student numbers during tough economic times. Some see it as a way to postpone entering the jobs market until things improve, and it looks like the economy could be healthier in June when they graduate. Employers do value PG education, they like the extra perspective that it brings, but you may need to spell your degree in an interview because employers don't always target generic 1-year PG courses in their job adverts. And this doesn't mean they don't want them, it's just the role doesn't require it. Some master's degrees are targeted by employers, so for example, if you want to become a nurse practitioner, then the role usually requires a relevant master's, so that qualification will speak for itself. It just depends on the subject that you've studied. So there is value in a master's, but remember to demonstrate this in your job applications. And if you're considering a conversion course, this could be worthwhile if you're looking to move into a different industry. We have information on the Prospects website about career changes and tips to help get you started if you want to do this. So looking into the future, PwC expect demand for labour to fall about 5% over the course of 2020, and this seems on track so far. Jobs in health and social care will thrive. A low-carbon workforce is expected to triple by 2030. This is not just engineers, but all occupations needed to support our industry, such as HR, accountancy, marketing, and sales roles. And demand for digital skills and creativity, as well as resilience, critical thinking, and leadership skills will be important. And as mentioned before, we will see a rise in virtual working. The IPD expects the number of home workers to at least double. So that's everything I have to say. Here is a list of useful resources if you'd like to check those out. The Prospects website has lots of information and job advice, as well as vacancies from a range of graduate employers, so it is worth checking those out. Thank you for listening to this webinar, and I hope you found it useful.
Thank you very much, Laura. We've now got a series of questions which I'm going to go through, and we're going to try and answer them as best as we can. So the first question comes from Precious, who asks very simply, will UK companies be welcoming to EU graduates? So, you know, we're going to kicked off straight away with the Brexit question. The honest truth is that UK companies will find it more difficult to recruit graduates from the European Union. There will be different work permit situations. There will be no longer free movement of people and workers. And so the constraints under which companies will operate towards EU graduates will significantly increase. However, we are short of a lot of graduates in a lot of areas, in things like tech, in sales, in marketing, in management, the sciences, engineering. So there are quite a lot of roles potentially available that will be potentially available, and particularly will be important in a post-COVID recovery, in which for which UK companies will need to target overseas workers. There simply won't be enough at home. Many of these will be graduate roles, and so we can already see that companies are concerned about issues with filling difficult vacancies in their workforce, and they know it will be harder to recruit people from the EU, but I would imagine there will still be niches where EU graduates will be very highly sought after, particularly in tech and business, where we don't have enough graduates, essentially. Pavlina asks, as an arts and humanities student, I've noticed there are fewer opportunities and jobs available to us. What do you think is the best thing that arts and humanities students could do to improve their employability for the current market? Well, it's true that the arts and the creative sector has been hit especially hard by the pandemic, and some of the metrics that we're using, some of the measures that we've seen suggest that the arts sector has been hit the worst of all industries in the UK. So what I'm going to tell you is slightly counterintuitive. Arts and humanities students can best improve their employability by not thinking of themselves as arts and humanities students to an extent. You are highly trained students who are specialists in communication and in general forms of and learning and the underpinnings of communication, and that's hugely important in the current economy, and even more so in an economy that is realizing that in a more virtualized workplace, some of the old forms of communication have to be modified or looked at a different way. So don't think of yourself as I've got a degree in creative arts to an extent, or a degree in English. They are very important, but instead think of yourself, I am trained in communication. I am trained in using, in interacting with people and helping them and showing them and explaining to or using various media in order to influence and persuade them. And once you start seeing your skills through those lenses, which is the lens, incidentally, that a lot of employers see arts and humanities graduates, then you realise that your degree is far from being this stereotype of, you know, not being terribly employable, actually hugely useful in this highly networked environment. If you're good at, if you're a good communicator, if you're good at using audio and visual media to get your message across, so you could be a music student who understands the value of sound and music in order to create a mood or an influence. Massively important. in modern marketing, modern persuasion in general. Even in roles like this, which involve conveying information to people effectively, you could, once you break down what these jobs are for, then you realize what good quality arts degrees can bring to the table. So don't think of yourself as, oh no, there aren't very many jobs for English graduates, there aren't many jobs for history graduates. There are loads of jobs for expert communicators. There are thousands of jobs for people who can get information across succinctly and effectively, and there are thousands of jobs for excellent persuaders and influencers, and that's what you are. So think of them in those terms and approach your job search in that way. Sam asks, what do you think is best in the current climate? Getting any work experience available or upskilling with a PG course? This was the question I was part way through when my browser crashed and I didn't realize you could still hear me saying, oh, nobody can hear me. So let's go back to that question. What's useful? Well, obviously, if you can get good quality work experience, there is very little that helps you get that is more effective in helping you get a job than a relevant, valuable, good quality work experience. And although work experience is difficult to get right now in this highly virtualized world, a lot of employers have been quite creative in the way that they deliver it because they appreciate the value. And a lot of employers recruit through their work experience program. So if you can get good quality work experience, it's always worth trying if you can manage it. That said, a postgraduate course is still a good investment. As Laura mentioned, we've got to be really clear, particularly about one-year master's courses. If you take a general master's course, there's not a special job niche that enters to. We don't have a general master's degree labour market for your MScs in information science or your MAs in history. There are specialist niches. So if you take, for example, an MSc in surveying, you are qualifying for one of the most sought after jobs in the for one of the most difficult to fill jobs in the country. Sought after, you'll be one of the most sought after individuals. Surveying is one of the hardest jobs to fill, and there isn't a company out there that says it can get enough surveyors. Likewise, planners, likewise specialist nurses or senior social workers, which are all master's level roles. But if you take let's say you go, you love history, you go and take an MA in history. Perfectly valid, perfectly respectable thing to do. What that history masters will not do is, there isn't a special group of jobs that require a master's in history as opposed to a BSc in history, a BA in history. You'll be going for the same jobs as you will be going for, or you will be eligible for the same jobs that you would have done with your first degree. However, what you will have done, you will spend an extra year at university studying, getting new techniques and new ideas and new ways of thinking and communications, and access to all the facilities that universities have. And that's where the value comes in. So your master's qualification will not necessarily speak for itself with the employer, but nor will they say, oh, you're overqualified for the job, or this is of no use to me. Think about what you've gained from your qualification and explain it to the employer, and you'll generally find a relatively warm welcome for those roles. But yeah, work experience is always going to be a good thing if you can get it. But employers are pragmatic. Many of us are not struggling to get good quality work experience. Steph asks, I'm struggling to get into the creative industry at the moment due to lack of experience and lack of junior positions. Should I start applying to jobs where I have other skills? Right, Steph, I'm not here to trample on your dreams. If you want to work in the creative industry, that's absolutely brilliant, and you should try to pursue that. But do bear in mind that you probably have years and years and years of career ahead of you. And no matter what the pandemic tries to do to the creative industry, it will still be there, because the creative industry is full of tremendously smart, resilient, adaptable and creative people. And they will not go away just because a little disease has caused them a few problems. So what I would suggest, Steph, is if you have particular roles in mind, why not get a few jobs elsewhere that in the interim and look to move back into the creative industry once you have a few extra extra kinds of experience under your belt. Some experience in commercial business will always be handy in the creative industry, which sometimes some creatives, although very, very innovative, sometimes struggle with the business side of things. If you've got some experience in client management or business services and so forth, then that might well be tremendously valuable in going back into your career. The creative industry will always be there. That's the end of the questions. Pavlina did ask, thank you for your time. Is there any way we can reach you or Charlie if we have any questions? You can always ask questions through research@prospects.ac.uk, or you can get through to me on social media. I'm on Twitter on LMI Charlie, or you can catch me on LinkedIn and ask me questions through that. And I'm really happy to try and answer them. Really sorry that the experience that you had was not quite as it should have been. We did have a few technical glitches. Not quite sure what happened. It could have been some updates needed to be applied or something, but we hope that this will be a reasonable second best for you. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day.